Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Pastors Training. Pastors presented to you by the Pastor Secretary. I'm Mishka, and tonight we have with us Pastor Timothy L. Wright, and he's going to share from the topic of pastoral challenges. Good evening, Pastor Wright.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I am grateful. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I am grateful as well. I know the issues with the computer has been crazy. It's been storming where we were just a little bit, and sometimes our internet goes in and out. But I am so grateful to be here tonight to share on this platform. Pastor Secretary, let me just say to you, you're doing a wonderful job for the body of Christ. You are a gift to the body of Christ. Hey, again, I am Timothy Wright. I'm the pastor of the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church in the city of Rouville, Mississippi. I've been preaching, come this second Sunday will be 30 years of preaching for me, and 26 of those years I've pastored. So tonight I want to discuss with you um, pastoral challenges. And there are many, and those of us who pastor, we know there are many challenges that we face as a pastor. But we will share just a few of them that are pretty much personal to me. And as you are viewing, we're grateful for you. You can comment and tell us what challenges you've been having as a pastor. So we do know as a pastor, the role is very challenging, but at the same time, it can also be rewarding. In changing times as ours, we have to be honest with ourselves. It's important to be open to trying something new. And I know that's far fetched for a lot of us, but I believe that many of us as pastors look at something new as being pretty much overrated, but we fail to realize the mission and the message never changes, but the methods do. The mission is still the same. That's to make disciples. The message is still Christ and Him crucified. And then somewhere down the line, we need to take another approach at ministry to win souls for Christ. So that's been one of my challenges as well. But then we have to look at the fact that uh, uh, um, there's no horse and buggy anymore. We're riding in actual vehicles. And so times have changed. So we have millenniums now that we have to look at that as well. We have millenniums who never picked up a newspaper, but they actually read through social media. So the fact that they're reading through social media, we need to be able to reach them through social media because their newspaper is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That's what they're pretty much doing. And some of them are doing more than that. So as we look at this, here's been one of my challenges as a pastor: vision. That's been definitely one of the challenges that I've had as a pastor. I'm sure many of you who pastor have that same sentiment as well. Uh, uh, Habakkuk 1:1 says this: the burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see. Because sometimes it's not what we see, but trying to convey what we see to those who don't see. Let me do that again. It's not the fact that we don't see, and vision is what God gives us, but sometimes trying to convey what we see to those who don't see becomes a challenge. So it is not often what we see, but how can I relate what I see to a congregation for constructive change, not just in our congregation, but also in our communities? And that's the challenge many of us have as pastors. Let me pause and say this because some pastors might not have this problem, but then I pastor in a rural area in the town of Rouville, Mississippi. The population is about 3,500, and it's become very difficult to try to cast vision and get people on the right track. This is not just a challenge as a pastor, but it will become it will come with the preaching challenges as well. So not only am I challenged by the vision, but then I'm challenged in my preaching, because in the preaching, I have to come with messages around my vision. So to get the people to envision the vision and make the necessary change is very challenging and can lead to more of a burden than a blessing. And that's what we want to be. We want to be more of we want ministry to be more of a blessing than a burden. And there are some people, and we have to understand this, there are some people that are walking not by faith, but they are walking by sight. And this can become very difficult as a pastor to relate messages concerning your vision. And because of this, my brothers and sisters, it can come with some side effects, because pastors today feel and I know I've been there. You feel tired, you feel overcommitted, you feel under fire, and sometimes we feel under resourced. Every church is not the same. There are some churches who have the resources to do everything they need to do, but then every church don't have those resources. So sometimes when you're under resourced, it creates a lot of problems, and you begin to be burnt out and tired, and sometimes you're overcommitted. And then when you don't have the resources, sometimes then you're under fire with the community. And this is what really caught my attention as I was looking at this, because there's statistics that shows that 42% of pastors have seriously considered quitting ministry. And guess what they're doing? They're quitting ministries and going to get a 9-to-5. So that really means 42% simply means 2 out of every 5 pastors thought about folding or have even folded in the last 2 or 3 years. That's alarming when we're looking at also the decline of the church. We'll look at that too. But I like this because if we look at Habakkuk again, Habakkuk had a burden, not only in the sense of a message from God, but also in the sense of a heavy weight. It was heavy in its content because Habakkuk announced coming judgment on Judah. But then it was also heavy in its source because Habakkuk brought a message from God, and every word of God is heavy with meaning and importance. Hey, y'all, we ought to be in a position that even though we are challenged in our vision, that does not stop us from trying to promote the vision, trying to make the vision made known unto the people of God, so they can share with the community, so we all prosper. My word to you as pastors who have been challenged and you want to give up, just remember that Habakkuk has 3 chapters. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to activate your faith and stay focused, because the prophet did look over a desolate country and boldly proclaimed that his joy was in the salvation of the Lord. And that's what we ought to be. Even though we become distracted in ministry and we are challenged with our vision, because there's some people who don't see it, and we become frustrated and we look like we want to throw the towel in. But then again, remember, Habakkuk has 3 chapters, and verse 17 blows my mind. Although the fig tree should not blossom, and there should be no fruit in the vine, though the yield of the olive shall fail, and the fields produce no food, though the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no cattle in the stall. This is what Habakkuk came up with. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, the God of my salvation. So we know we have somebody who is he has given us vision. So if God is giving us vision, we can count on him to give us provision, because again, we want to get the people in a position that they can envision or have a mental picture of what God is saying to the man of God or the woman of God, that we would be in a position that we can move forward in ministry, because there you have vision, you have provision, Then you have envision, but then most important, we don't want to get to a position that people are not seeing the vision or not envisioning the vision, and then they will start creating the vision. So let's look at that, because we put ourselves that we want people to see what we see, but then we have to be careful and not put ourselves in a position that we become frustrated just because people are not seeing our vision. Here's what I've discovered in my 30 years of preaching, 27 years of pastoring. Everybody's not going to see what you see, and there's going to always be somebody who's going to always say but this or but that. But remember, God has given you the vision, and if God has given you the vision, God is going to give you provision. So think about that. So again, 42%, y'all, pastors have seriously considered quitting ministry. That's alarming, y'all. That's very alarming. They experience many burnout and spiritual exhaustion symptoms caused by such as fatigue. We become fatigued, tired, loss of appetite, changing sleeping patterns, spiritual doubt. That's what mostly happens sometimes when it looks like when we are trying to convey a vision to the congregation, to get to the community, it looks like we begin to have spiritual doubt, as if God is not really telling us to do this, and we second guess or question God about the vision. And sometimes we have emotional withdrawal from community and family. So when pastors are in a healthy state, their family, the staff, and the church are better set up to thrive. But watch this. But when they are distressed, their ministry is limited, and everyone around them is affected. It left and left unattended, these problems can lead to pastor burnout. So one of the problems that I'm having, or that we all experience, is this. Let me see. Yeah. Our problem is declining church attendance. I think a lot of us have seen this. Church attendance is at its lowest level in the United States history, with the average church seeing about 60 people attending each week. And I know we can turn on and go to Facebook and YouTube and see these mega churches, and it'll still look like they're booming. But when we do a statistics of all that, it averages around 60 people a week attending church. So many pastors whose churches survived COVID have found that their in-person attendance has not bounced back to pre-pandemic numbers after reopening their doors. And here's the reality. There are some people who closed the doors and were strictly online. And then some closed the doors, never to open the doors again, especially when we're looking at rural areas with no resources. And I do this personally, because this is what happened to me, because we were not online. We was doing no online presence at all until COVID. And thank God for the pastor secretary who helped us to get going, and she did a lot of things for me to show me a few things how I can get going. And here's the reality. And now that we're back in the building, now the question now is what we do now, because do we keep online? Because we got an online and in-person conflict, because it looks like if I don't go online, maybe the people will come back. But then do we leave the cameras up, or do we take the cameras down? That's the question. So that's been some of the challenges, because we've been seeing decline in our attendance. And some of us think that the decline in our attendance is due to the fact that we're online, and people now are taking the pleasure of just sitting in front of the computer or some type of a device to watch what's going on at the church. But then do we take the cameras down and think they're coming back? Because we got to be honest with ourselves. There are some people who will never come back. That's reality. But then again, all churches don't have this problem, because there were some churches who were already seen, and that's what's going on. So us being online create another presence for us, because God, Jesus did say, greater works would we do, and we don't know what that greater works would have been. And I think the fact that COVID had set in and many churches was on the same playing level, we found ourselves had to get in front of a camera and do some things. And it became very challenging, because then once we got back into the building, y'all, then here's the reality. We have to determine, are we going to stay online, or are we just going to go back to our normal routine? And then people have been blessed because of our online presence. So that's something we have been challenged with. Every church is not challenged with this, but my church was challenged with this. And let me say this, and let me tell you one reason why my church was challenged. My church was more challenged because the average age of my membership is 62 years old. So during COVID, I became very frustrated with ministry. I became, oh my goodness, I became so frustrated that I honestly thought about, look, this ain't for me anymore. But then people like the pastor secretary, who encouraged and was showing us how to do things, and sometimes she was offering her service for free, and we were just blessed just being in her presence, her doing things like that, and gave us a sense of urgency to know, hey, even though we are not skilled in this, sometimes all we need is just some simple tools. And she gave us requested some of those simple tools for us, and man, we've been rolling ever since. But then everybody didn't have this problem, because some churches was already had an online presence. And then I was having this a conversation with an older preacher about the solution to getting people back in church. And these was his words. He says, keep on preaching, keep on praying, keep on being patient. And then he said, keep on planting, keep on watering, and watch God yield the increase. But then that was good. But then at the same time, we were still frustrated. And I came with this, that we can't let frustration and fatigue become a factor in the equation of preaching, praying, and being patient. So this is what I want us to see tonight as well, because even with we trying to increase the church attendance, let me give you a few options. Here's option one: give people reasons to attend church more frequently. Let's be honest with ourselves, especially in most rural areas. Again, about 3,500 people, where there's about 150 people on roll, but I'm in that 60 that would probably show up on any given Sunday. So here's that first option again was give people reasons to attend church more frequently. And there's some things we might have to do differently. There's some things we have to maybe get out of our comfort zone. Like most time, we have worship service. There's a prayer meeting. There's a Bible study in between that. You might have an ushers meeting. The choir come to practice, but then there's nothing else that we're engaging in that we would be in a position that we would begin to build relationships again. And that's another thing that happened during COVID. People lost contact with one another because they were used to being engaged in a building, but not simply not engaging with one another. So we have to put ourselves in a position, like, for instance, movie night. We've been doing movie nights, and after the movie, we'll discuss the movie, because most of our movies is faith-based movies, and we get to express our faith and see what we got out the movie. We've been doing bingo, and I know some people are like, what, bingo? Yes. We are trying to put ourselves in a position that we are building relationships, and people are understanding that ministry can be fun, even though it's sometimes challenging, but it also can be rewarding. Here's the second option: accept that they are attending less frequently and find ways to communicate without requiring people to have a seat in your building. We want people in, but the reality is everybody's not going to come in. So maybe online presence is what we need, and in person. That would be my option is number three, where you got to give them reasons to attend church frequently. And then for those who are not, you still got to put them in a position that they're seeing what you're doing. Because this is the question I asked my church is this: Did the community really miss you during COVID? Yes, they probably missed the fact that Sundays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and that we were parked around the building, but did they miss the people in the building? Because again, we're trying to increase membership, but in order for us to increase membership, that means for us to go out. So what God is showing me now, that in order for me to go out, I got to first go in. So what I mean by that is that evangelism starts on the inside, that it will go out on the inside. And Jesus expresses that in Matthew chapter 9, when he says, the harvest is plenty, is truly plenteous, but the laborers are few. So this is what I've been doing. The harvest is ripe for picking. Everybody who is out, I see. But then we got to get the in-house together, because when Jesus tells us to pray to the Lord of the harvest, he's talking about, hey, pray to God that he will send workers to go out there. But then when he gets to chapter 10, he gets the disciples to go out, and he says, go to your kin. So in other words, go to the church first. So we got to get the church healed on the inside, so we can go out. So in, then out. So this has definitely been a challenge to me with church attendance. This is a great challenge as a pastor. Trust me, dealing with declining church attendance. And lastly, y'all, and I didn't want to stay on here long. Lastly, I want to share with you that most pastors suffer from job-related stress. Yes, most pastors suffer from job-related stress. Can we be honest with ourselves? COVID did a number on us. COVID did a number in our personal lives, and also it did a number with the church. And we're already challenged with vision. We're already challenged with the fact that there's a decline in church attendance, but then we can't be so stressed out because we suffer because of job-related stress. Stress is by far the largest challenge facing pastors today. While many factors contribute to stress, the three primary categories for pastoral stress include this: finances. That's one, because some, especially a lot of rural churches, don't have the finances they need to do things. And then as a pastor, managing both church and personal finance becomes a burden, including income, debt, savings, and expenses. So I'm doing not just that at church, but I'm also doing that at the house as well. So managing the church and personal finance becomes a drag. Trying to save is stressful. And I got a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, and they are at some expensive colleges. You hear me? My daughter is at the University of Southern Mississippi, and my son is at Mississippi State University. And y'all, it's challenging because I'm trying to manage that and also manage the church. And then the other thing we need to look at is relationships, because COVID put us in a position that we wasn't in the church, and it looked like we didn't have conflict. But then conflict came after COVID. So handling conflict, managing church staff, reporting to the board, counseling and caring for the flock's spiritual health, as well as taking care of their own of our own spouse and children. Y'all, that becomes a burden. So what we have to do is learn how to balance that. We got to definitely learn how to balance that. And if we don't, we'll find ourselves so stressful that we want to look at the vision again, and then we want to look at the fact that church is declining in attendance. Then we try to play the blame game now. So we need to learn how to handle conflicts, manage church staff, even those of you who are reporting to boards, counseling and caring for the flock's spiritual health. We need to make sure that all that is intact. Handling conflicts is going to be important. And I know that becomes a challenge, managing church staff when everybody has a different personality. And there's some people that you can have intimate conversations with, and some you can't. Managing church staff is important. Reporting to boards and counseling and caring for the flock's spiritual health, all that's important. But then here's the third one, and I kind of briefly talked about this. Time management is everything too, because especially those pastors who are by vocation, you're juggling your work, your family, then emergencies come, counseling, personal time, and that's something I've learned to do, is take personal time. Again, my son is getting ready to graduate from Mississippi State, and hopefully in December. But he played basketball when he was in high school, and I devoted 4 years strictly to him, and I never missed not one basketball game that he had. I didn't care if it was on a Sunday, whatever day it was on. I made sure that I was going to be with my son. So we learn to step away sometimes, not step away to say we're quitting, but step away for personal time. That's time management, because again, we're juggling. Sometimes the wife feel like she's left out. We're juggling. Sometimes the family, my children seem as if they're left out. We're juggling. Daddy, all you do is church. So I had to learn how to balance and find ways of time management. And then let me say this, and I hope I'm saying this on good authority. It's all right to say no. I've learned through this COVID experience, it's all right to say no. And I've been practicing no, 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 no. Family time is important. So all that's important. So one thing we must acknowledge is this: we can't do it all by ourselves. I know that. I've learned that. Pastors, it's all right to let people know you need help. I'm gonna be honest with you. During when COVID actually hit, and again, thank God for the pastor's secretary, because I got a minor in computer science, but then I graduated in '93, and I went straight from college into ministry. So I never got a chance to use the degree I have. And then I've learned through the years now that you got to really keep up with what's going on, because even technology changes. It has changed. In fact, it has changed during these 2 or 3 years that we've been faced with this pandemic. So one thing I have a knowledge is this: I can't do it by myself, and I'm not too proud to say, "Hey, I need some help," because if we don't, it will lead to loneliness and isolation. Because you don't want to get the church that you pastor. You don't want to get the church in a position that, well, the pastor gonna handle everything anyway, and they're not going to do anything. Because ministry, we all ought to be engaging in ministry. That's time management. So we got to delegate some of the things that we're doing to folks. That's why we have staffs. That's why we have deacons and deaconettes and other folks, auxiliaries to accommodate what we're doing in the preaching ministry. Okay. So being a pastor can be tough, and trying to live up to everyone's expectations, and sometimes, y'all, including our own, is impossible. So we must learn to take time out for ourselves. Okay. So for the sake of this, and pastors have been challenged because we've been there are some pastors, and I'm included, with mental health challenges, where I've learned now to just walk away from what I love so I can keep on doing what I love. So sabbaticals are real. Rest is spiritual, and we need to take time to get away with family. And even sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, I get away by myself. There have been several times that I checked into a hotel by myself and sometimes do absolutely nothing. Get away for yourselves. Get away with your family. Work on your time management. It's going to be very important. Work on relationships at the church, and it also helps you at the house. And then most important, make sure you're resting. Rest is spiritual, y'all. So that's all I have for tonight. So thank you. And I pray that this has been a blessing to you. If you have any questions, I wasn't looking at the comments. I was into what I was into.
That's okay. So I do have one here. Um, what's the best way to keep a pastor encouraged when there's fighting in the house? You have any advice for that?
What is the best way to keep a pastor encouraged when there is? Oh,
Fighting in the
wow.
house. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one way is this, and this is my personal thing. Um, it's all right for. I, so I pastor a church, but then I have a pastor. So that to get counseling is necessary. So I would suggest spiritual counseling. It works. It works anywhere. I hope I answered that question to the best of my ability that
Okay.
you understood that.
Okay. Well, thank you. There
But
were no other.
that's going to be important.
Every pastor needs a
Go
pastor,
ahead.
and then yeah, I was just no. I was that's it. And so this one was just agreeing with you that family time and self care is paramount.
Bless you. Bless you.
Okay. Well, if that is it, I don't see any other comments. Just people who are agreeing with you, and I just want to tell you
Hey,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. You're
I know it
welcome.
was rough getting on, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessings to you. Those of you who are watching, she has a phenomenal story. God is doing great things in her life. She's a blessing and a gift to the body of Christ. We're going to continue to be praying for you, um, uh, that you continue to do what you do, and know this: be not dismayed, whatever betide. God
Mm-hmm.
will take
Yes.
care of you.
Yes, sir. I sure appreciate it. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night.